भक्तां शनिन्दतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्री चरणारविन्दां चतुर्विधा श्री भगवत्प्रसादो साध्वन्नतृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घान् विधा श्री भगवत्प्रसादो साध्वन्नतृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घान् कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्री चरणारविन्दाम् श्री राधिका माधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्नां राधिका माधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्नां प्रतीक्षणा स्वाधनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्री चरणारविन्दा तीक्षणा स्वाधनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्री चरणारविन्दा निकुञ्जयूनो रतिकेलि सिद्धै यायालिभिरुक्तिरपेक्षणीया जयूनो रतिकेलि सिद्धै यायालिभिरुक्तिरपेक्षणीया तत्रातिदाक्षादतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्री चरणारविन्दाम् शादतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्री चरणारविन्दाम् साक्षाद्धरित्विना समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव सद्भिः साक्षाद्धरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव सद्भिः किन्तु प्रभोर्या प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्री चरणारविन्दाम् तु प्रभोर्या प्रिय एव तस्य गुरो श्री चरणारविन्दा यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् नगति कुतोऽपि सादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् नगति कुतोऽपि ध्यायान्स्तु वां तस्य यशस्त्रिसन्ध्या वन्दे गुरो श्री चरणारविन्दाम् वां तस्य यशस्त्रिसन्ध्या श्री चरणारविन्दा नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामिनिति नामिने ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादिशतारिणे नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे पाश्चात्यादेश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरा भक्त वृंदा श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरा भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा नील माधव राधे यो राधा नील माधव राधे जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रमा जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रमा जय सीताराम जय सीताराम जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान सीताराम जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह नित्य गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव।
जय ओम श्रीपाद परमहंस प्रत्यक्षाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतश्री श्रीमान द्वादश अपरचन वृंद भक्तवतन स्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। इसका फाउंडेशन दीदी की फाउंडेशन शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम श्रीपाद परमहंस प्रत्यक्षाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतश्री श्रीमान द्वादश भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। आनंद कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य शिल ठाकुर की जय। Primitive Prabhu Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopakoti Nasha Mukunda Radha Kundi Giri Gaudam Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Martha Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Ganga Mai Ki Jai Shri Amini Mai Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Gaura Pramanandi All glory to assembled devotees, all glory to assembled devotees, all glory to assembled devotees, all glory to Shri Guru and Gaura.
Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Narasimhaya Praladana Dadaini हिरण्यकशिपूर्वक्षः श्रीमटङ्कानखालाये टङ्कानखालाये इतो नरसिंहो परतो नरसिंहो यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहो ततो नरसिंहो बहे नरसिंहो हृदये नरसिंहो हृदये नरसिंहो नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे सिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे तव करकमलवरे नखा अद्भुत शृङ्गा दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तव करकमलवरे नखा अद्भुत शृंगा बलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृंगा केशवधृता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे केशवधृता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे केशवधृता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव ओ नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज नित्य गौर हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल जय जय प्रभुपा 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 जय जय प्रभुपा 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 जय जय प्रभुपा जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव। भक्त विघ्न विनाश लक्ष्मी नरसिम्हा स्वामी भगवान की जय। भक्त शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।
विष्णु भक्ति पदे देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवसुताय विष्णु भक्ति पदे देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवसुताय विष्णु भक्ति पदे देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवसुताय विष्णु भक्ति पदे देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः। चिंता देवी तुलसी महाराज की जय।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी 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 राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी सेवा पावो जे तो मारा शरण लोय तारा वंचा पूरन होय कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी वृंदावन वासी मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो नयने हरिवो सदा जुगल रूपरासी এই নিবেদন ধারো সাক্ষীর অনুগাতা করো सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासी दीना कृष्ण दासे कोई ये न मोरा होए
दीना कृष्ण दासे कोई
श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये न भासी श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये न भासी गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये न भासी यानी कानी च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे तानि तानि पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम Ram Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinda Devi 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 Nityai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nityai Gaura Hari Bol Nityai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nityai Gaura Hari Bol श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय वृंदाए तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रद देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः वृंदाए तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रद देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः वृंदाए तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रद देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय
Beloved Krishna, I bow down before you again and again. My desire is to attend the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wished to fulfill. Bestow mercy upon him and make him a resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in the precious groves of Shri Vrindavan town. Thus, within my vision, I shall always behold the beautiful paths of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Carol Dancer's virtue. Please give me the privileged devotional service to make me your own maid servant. This very fallen Lord Son of Krishna, pray. May I always swim in the love of Shri Radha and Govinda. Shri Tulsi. Shri Chaitanya Shastakam ki jai. Seto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadava Nirvapanam Shriya Gairavatam Trika Vitaranam Vidyavatu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamita Sadhanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Namagari Bahudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha Edadishi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durudevami Deshamiha Janina Nuraka Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtanya Sada Harihi Na Thanan Na Janan Na Sundarin Kavitam Vajakadisha Kamaye Mama Jammani Jammanishvare Bhavata Bhaktir Hai Tukhi Tvai Ayinanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Man Dishame Bhavam Buddha Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Chitaduri Satesham Vichintaya Nayanam Galadashrutadaya Vatanam Gadgada Rudaya Gira Pulakai Nichtam Vapur Kadata Vanama Grahane Pavishati Yuga Itam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravisha Itam Shunya Itam Chaka Sarvam Govinda Virahe Name Ashrisha Padaratam Pinnashtumam Adarshana Marmhatam Karotuva Tata Tata Va Vidadhatu Lampato Matprananatastu Saevana Paraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Shastakam Ki Jai Glory to Shri Krishna Sankirtana, who declares the heart of all the just accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life for repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime foundation and the beautiful cementing the Lord because it spreads the rays of foundation into the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean transcendental bliss and enables the fully taste the nectar of fruits we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone crowns all foundation human beings, and thus we have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, all the kindness enables us to easily approach you by your holy name, and I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. We should chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, thinking yourself lower than straw in the street. We should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, we can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any performers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son Mahajananda, I'm your eternal servant, yet somehow I have fallen into this ocean, birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean death and place me as one of Adam at the lotus feet. O my Lord, all my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when chanting holy name. While my voice choke up, while the hairs of my body stand in a recitation of your name. O Govinda, feeling your separation and causing the moment to be like a millennium. Tears are flowing from eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he enters me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditional. Shri Chaitanya Shastakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting holy names that should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. To blaspheme devotees who have dedicated his life for the propagation of her name, the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Brahma to be equal to independent and named Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or the literature in pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to the imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting holy name. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in the Vedas as fruit activities, karma kanda. 9. To instruct a faceless person about the glorious holy name. 10. To not have complete faith in the chanting holy name and to maintain material attachments even after standing so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to inattentive word chant. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances on all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. May I get to the right trees and the food to everyone. May I flow compassion to fallen conditioned souls. Vancha Kaupadurudisha Kripasindu Sevata Patidadam Pavipyo Vaishnavipyo Namo Namaha. Samhita ki jai. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakarasatma Sakalpa Riksha Pakshavrite Susrabir Lakshmi Sahasrasat Sambrahma Sevyamana Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Pranandam Aravinda Dalayataksham Barhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Tibanga Lalitani Taprakasam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Langani Yes Langani Yes Saklan Dimanti Pasyanti Panti Kayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaita Machutam Anadi Mananta Rupam Madhyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sadurlabha Madurlabha Matma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Dastakoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayora Tapi Manasomani Pungamanam So Pyastiyat Papadasimya Vichintya Tatve Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekop Yasora Chaitam Jagadanda Kotim Yas Chakti Rasti Jagadanda Chaya Yadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Dio Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusa Sukta Yamevindigama Pratitastavanti Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Patibhavita Vistabir Evani Jarupa Dayakalabi Goloka Evani Visata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santak Sadeva Hidesa Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menatistan Nana Avataram Akarod Bhuvane Sakintu Krishna Swayam Sambhavat Paramampamam Yo Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Pavato Jagananda Koti Yasya Koti Svasesha Vasudadi Vibhuti Bhinam Tad Brahman Iskalamanam Tamasesa Bhutam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Jayagun Yatad Visay Veda Vitaya Manam Sadva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Satvam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasuya Praninam Pratifilam Smaratam Upetya Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Tale Chatasya Devi Maheswari Dama Sate Sutesu Tete Prabhava Nichaya Vitascha Yena Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shristi Stati Pralaya Sada Vasakti Reka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichana Rupam Apyasya Chitesta Tesa Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Siram Yata Dadivikara Visesa Yoga Sanjaya Tena Hitata Pritakasti Hetu Yasambutam Apitata Samapaiti Karya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Deep Deeparcha Evhita Santanam Abhyapetya Deepayate Vivitahita Sadamad Saman Dharma Yastadri Gevahija Vishnu Tayavibhati Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narna Vajale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidramananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupa Adhara Saktim Avalamya Param Svamurtim Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nishvasita Kalam Atavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadandanata Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kala Viseso Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Basman Yatasma Sakalesana Jesu Tejas Riyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitat Pratatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dvande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Vaja Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahika Ganamambu Marudisascha Kalas Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visantiyam Cha Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savitasa Gadagrahano Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesiteja Yasyagaya Brahmati Sambrita Kalachakru Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Jaya Shrutayastapam Si Brahmadi Kita Patagavadyaras Sajivaha Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrindra Gopa Matavendra Mahosva Karma Bandhan Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdahati Kintu Jabhakti Bhajam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayati Bhitti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gora Vasevya Bhava Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisim Tanamapurete Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiyakanta Kanta Paramapurisha Kalpataravo Drumabhumish Chintamani Ganamai Mai Toyam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Abhiva Vamsi Priyasaki Chidanandam Juti Param Apitada Swadyam Apicha Sayatra Shiradi Bihi Savadi Sarabi Byasta Sumahan Nime Sardakyo Vavra Jitina Hiya Trapi Samaya Bhaje Swita Dvipam Tamaham Ihukolakam Ityam Vidantas Te Santakshiti Vira Chara Katipaye Shri Guru Vastaga Prayers Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy. Just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. Therefore, my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet is such a spiritual master, who is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments, the spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan. I offer my most humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master as a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, his divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam, Grantaraja Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, verse number 43. Vishvasya Janma Stiti Samya Arte. Vishvasya Janma Stiti Samya Arte. Krita Vatarasya Badam Bujamte Rajema Sarve Saranam Yadisha Smritam Prayachati Abhayam Swapumsa Shritam Prayachati Abhayam Swapumsa. Vishvasya of the cosmic universe, Janma, creation, stiti, maintenance, samyama arte, for the dissolution also, krita, accepted or assumed, avatarasya, of the incarnations, pada ambujam, lotus feet, te, your, rajema, let us take shelter of, sarve, all of us, sharanam, shelter, yat, that which, isha, O Lord, smritam, remembrance, prayat chitti, awarding, avayam, courage, swapumsam, of the devotees. O Lord, translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. O Lord, you assume incarnations for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. And therefore, we all take shelter of your lotus feet because they always award remembrance and courage to your devotees. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. For the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestations, there are three incarnations, Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara, Lord Shiva. They are the controllers or masters of the three modes of material nature, which cause the phenomenal manifestation. Vishnu is the master of the mode of goodness. Brahma is the master of the mode of passion, and Maheshwara is the master of the mode of ignorance. There are different kinds of devotees according to the modes of nature. Persons in the mode of goodness worship Lord Vishnu. Those in the mode of passion worship Lord Brahma. And those in the mode of ignorance worship Lord Krishna. All three of these deities are incarnations of the Supreme Lord Krishna, because He is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. The demigods directly refer to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord and not to the different incarnations. The incarnation of Vishnu in the material world is, however, directly worshipped by the demigods. It is learned from various scriptures that the demigods approach Lord Vishnu in the ocean of milk and submit their grievances whenever there is some difficulty in the administration of universal affairs. Although they are incarnations of the Lord, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva worship Lord Vishnu, and thus they are also counted amongst the demigods and not as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Persons who worship Lord Vishnu are called demigods, and persons who do not do so are called asuras, or demons. Vishnu always takes the part of the demigods, but Brahma and Shiva sometimes take the side of the demons. It is not that they become one in interest with them, but sometimes they do something in order to gain control over the demons. Whoa. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O Lord, you assume incarnations for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation, and therefore we all take shelter of your lotus feet because they always award remembrance and courage to your devotees. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. This is a very interesting purport, and it gives very, very good information to try and understand the what you would call hierarchical emanations coming from Krishna. Hierarchy means different levels of authorities. So there are different levels of authorities in the material world. There was once a very poor boy. He was homeless. So he was trying to serve someone that could help him. So he went up to a grocer because he saw so many people going into the grocery store and buying things and giving their money to the grocery man. So he thought, I think this grocery man is the best person to serve. So he went to the grocery store, and the grocery man said, "How can I help you? What would you like to buy?" And the boy said, "Well, I don't have any money, so there's nothing I can buy." He said, "Okay, then why are you here?" He said, "I want to offer you service for free." He said, "For free?" He said, "Yes. I don't want anything from you. I'll just work for free." He said, "Well, if you want to do that, and here's a broom. Now you can sweep the outside of the store." So the boy took the broom and swept the outside of the store. And after some time, he finished sweeping. He came back and he said, "Here's your broom, sir. Is there anything else I can do?" He said, "Okay, now you can sweep the store." So he swept the store. And like that, he worked all day. And at night, when the man was closing the store, he said, "Well, thank you very much." And the boy said, "Can I come back again tomorrow and work?" He said, "Well, if you want to do that, you can." And the boy said, "Thank you very much." And he left. So this went on for a week. And after 1 week, the man was a little interested in him. So he said, the grocer was a little interested in him. He said, "Well, you leave every night. So where do you sleep? And how do you eat?" The boy said, "Well, I sleep under this tree in the neighborhood." He said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "How do you eat?" "Well, I have a little difficulty eating because I don't have any money. But sometimes people give me a little bit of food. Sometimes I eat food that's been thrown away in the trash." He said, "How do you do that?" I said, "Well, I try and get rice that's been thrown away, and I wash it. I can't eat it right away. I wash it, and then I dry it in the sun, and then I try to eat it." He said, "Oh." He said, "Well, you seem to be a nice boy." He said, "I have a small shed in the back of my store. Why don't you sleep there?" The boy said, "Okay." And he said, "And I'll give you food to eat every day." The boy said, "Oh, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that." So now the boy had a place to stay, and he had a steady supply of food. So this went on for about 2 years. But the boy noticed that every month the grocer would take money and go away somewhere. So one day he inquired from the grocer, said, "Once a month you take some money and you go away. What do you do with it?" And the grocer said, "Well, I have to pay my taxes to the governor." The boy said, "Oh, the governor." He said, "What's the governor?" He said, "The governor is a very powerful man, and he is the director of this state." "Oh," the boy said, "that's very interesting." So after some time, the boy said to the grocer, said, "I was thinking maybe I could serve the governor." So the grocer said, "Well, if you want to do that, that's okay." And the boy said, Could you put in a good word with the governor?" And the grocer said, "Of course I will." He said, "You're a good boy. You've worked very hard for me, and you're very honest. I'll do that." So after putting in the good word, the grocer explained the situation of the boy to the governor, and the governor said, "Okay, yeah, he can come. He can work here." So then he started working for the governor. Now the governor's obviously the governor's palace is a lot more opulent than the grocer's shed, and the food that the governor had was much more opulent than what he was eating at the grocer's. And also the clothing that he got from the governor, the hand-me-downs, was much more opulent. So now he's living in the governor's palace, he's eating the governor's food, and he's dressed in clothing that the governor has given him. So his whole situation improved tremendously.
So this went on for a couple of years, and the boy again was very humble and honest, very, very honest, and very obedient. And but he noticed also that the governor was leaving his palace and going somewhere and taking a lot of money with him. So one day he asked the governor, "Where do you go once a month and take all that money?" The governor said, "Well, I go see the king." He said, "The king?" He said, "What's that?" He said, "The king, he's the person that governs the whole country." And the boy said, oh, well, thank you for letting me know." So then for another year or two, the boy kept working for the governor. And then one day he said to him, he said, "Governor," he said, "is it possible that I could work for the king?" And the governor said, "Of course, why not? You're an honest boy. You work hard. You don't lie or cheat or anything like that or steal. I'll put a good word in for you." So he did. And now the boy was working for the king. And the king was way more opulent than the governor. And the palace of the king was much more wonderful and opulent. And the food was opulent. And now the boy was living in the palace of the king and eating the food of the king and dressed in noble clothing. And this went on for some time, for several years. And he noticed that the king himself was leaving the palace once a month and going somewhere. So he didn't dare ask the king where he was going. But he decided that he would follow him because he would leave in the late afternoon and come back the next morning. So he decided to follow him secretly. So the day arrived, and in the evening time, the king left the palace, and the boy followed him, unknown to the king. And the king went deep into the forest, and there, at the distance, the boy could hear some noise in the deep forest. And it was a little scary. It was late at night, and he's following the king. And then they came to a place by following the king. You saw there was a fire, and there were a whole bunch of people sitting, and they all looked like sadhus, and they were chanting, "Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare." And then the boy saw something that was amazing. The king gave his dandavats to those sages, those yogis or those devotees. And then he sat down and chanted with them. And after some time, one of them gave a lecture, and the king sat there and heard the lecture. And this went on almost all night long. And eventually, the sun started coming up, and the king paid his obeisances again to the sages. And then he came back to his palace. But the boy didn't go back with him. What he did was he went and tried to talk to the sages. And they said, "Oh, who are you?" And he explained who he was. And he said, "Can I serve you?" And they said, "Well, you don't serve us exactly." He said, "Oh, really? Well, who do I serve?" He said, "Well, we teach you how to serve Krishna." He said, "Krishna? Who's Krishna?" They said, "He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the creator of the whole universe, and the supreme controller of everything." So the boy said, "Oh, really? Well, that's the person I want to really serve." And so he became a devotee and spent the rest of his life chanting Hare Krishna and living with the saintly devotees and always engaging in devotional service. And eventually he went back to Godhead. So, yeah, and it all started by him wanting to serve the most prominent person. And little by little he found out that Krishna is the most prominent and permanent and eternal person, and the best person to serve, with the help, of course, of genuine devotees. So here we see that Krishna assumes the incarnations for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. That means Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu, or Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And therefore, we all take shelter of your lotus feet because they always award remembrance and courage to your devotees. So that's what we want. Remembrance that we're the eternal servant to the Lord and subordinate to the Lord. We can't be equal to or greater than the Lord. And our constitutional position, because we're part and parcel of Krishna, is to serve the Lord. And then also, he gives us remembrance. And then also courage. Courage. We need courage because there are so many challenges in the material world. There's always difficulties. There's birth, old age, disease, and death. These things are bewildering to people. How does this happen? How does a baby form in the womb of the mother? It's a miracle. And then it's pushed out. And then it begins to grow bigger and bigger. It already grew in the womb of the mother. Now it's growing outside. So all these things are bewildering. They're incomprehensible. We don't know exactly how it's happening. And our body is always changing. That's also bewildering. And people that we love, they die. That's bewildering. And we also are going to die someday. That's also bewildering. All these things are bewildering. And we don't really understand how it's happening. So when a person says, well, I don't understand anything about how all this stuff is happening, especially sometimes there's so much suffering in the world, and also I'm also suffering. So I got to figure out what this is all about. And eventually, like the boy, they go to these genuine sadhus or devotees to try and ask these questions. So if you have no questions, that means you're really in ignorance. But we should have many questions because there are a lot of bewildering things in this world. So there are four kinds of people that never really surrender to the Lord. First of all, there's the ass type of person. The ass only is interested in eating, sleeping, and sex. So as long as he can fill his belly, he's happy. And he doesn't think of anything else beyond that, other than sleeping and having sex. So that type of person is never interested in Krishna. And then you have the person who's highly educated and uses all his or her education for sense gratification. They're considered the worst of the worst. And they never come to Krishna. And then you have people who are somewhat interested in spiritual life, but they become attracted to heavenly planets and worshiping demigods for material benefit and so forth. So they also usually are reluctant to come to Krishna, although they have a better chance than the other first two. And then the third, that is the demons. They're completely against Krishna. They hate Krishna. So they never come to Krishna. So we see that there are different levels of people who have difficulty surrendering to the Lord. Okay, so then you have four kinds of people that do come to the Lord. They are one who is in distress, one who's seeking wealth, one who's curious, and one who seriously wants to know who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so this is very interesting because the third one, the Maya Pratagyana, they have knowledge, but their knowledge is stolen by illusion. So they're like the Mayavadis. They are somewhat interested in spiritual life, but they're not really ready to completely surrender to Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So although they might achieve the Brahman realization, they will fall down because they don't have any interest in devotional service. They're called Maya Pritagyana, or those persons whose erudite knowledge has been nullified by the influence of illusory material energy. They are mostly very learned fellows, great philosophers, poets, literati, and people who know, who's very well read, and scientists, etc. But the illusory energy misguides them, and therefore they disobey the Supreme Lord. There are a great number of Maya Pratagyanas at the present moment, even amongst the scholars of the Bhagavad Gita. Whoa! They study the Bhagavad Gita, but yet their knowledge is stolen or lost due to illusion. In the Gita, in plain and simple language, it is stated that Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is none equal or greater than him. He is mentioned as the father of Brahma, the original father of all of human beings. In fact, Sri Krishna is said to be not only the father of Brahma, but also the father of all species of life. He is the root of the impersonal Brahman and Paramatma, and the supersoul in every entity in his plenary portion. He is the fountainhead of everything, and everyone is advised to surrender unto his lotus feet. Despite all these clear statements in the Bhagavad Gita, the Maya Pritagyana people deride the personality of the Supreme Lord and consider him merely another human being. This is unbelievable. There are actually people like this. One of them was Dr. Radha Krishnan, right? President of India. He was a Maya Pritagyana. He's a person who knows Vedic literature, but his knowledge is stolen by illusion. So, and they deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead and consider him merely another human being. They do not know that the blessed form of human life is designed after the eternal and transcendental feature of the Supreme Lord. An unauthorized interpretation of the Gita by the class of Maya Pratagyanas outside the purview of the Parampara system are so many stumbling blocks on the path of spiritual understanding. The deluded interpreters do not surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, nor do they teach others to follow this principle. So there we see these 4 types of people that never come to Krishna, even though they're very close. They're actually studying Bhagavad Gita, but yet they misinterpret everything. See? And then, of course, there are the demons after that. And then there's 4 types of people that do come. Okay, so today we're going to hear something about a class of people that are devotees that you would never think could be devotees. You'd never think, no, this is not possible. What are they talking about? Such people never become devotees. But no, they do. And they're actually good devotees. So these are fallen women or prostitutes. So this is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 10th chapter, 30th verse, where it says, Eta param stritvam apastapisalam nirasta socham batasadu kurvate yasam krihat pushkara lochana patir najat vapaiti aritibir spirsan. All these women auspiciously glorified their lives despite their being without individuality and without purity. Their husband, the lotus-eyed personality Godhead, never left them alone at home. He always pleased their hearts by making valuable presentations. So Prabhupada says, the devotees of the Lord are purified souls. As soon as the devotees surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord sincerely, the Lord accepts them, and thus the devotees at once become free from all material contaminations. Such devotees are above the 3 modes of material nature. There is no bodily disqualification of a devotee, just as there is no qualitative difference between the Ganges water and the filthy drain water when they are amalgamated. What an amazing example. Just as the qualitative difference between the Ganges water and the filthy drain water when they are amalgamated. So when I first went to Vrindavan, I saw that there were open sewers. That is, that there are these trenches, and there were, and when in the town of Vrindavan, this trench would be on right outside the the shops, and you would have to. There were steps you'd have to go up to get into the shop. I don't know if you've experienced that. And then, huh? Okay. Yeah. Well, I didn't see it in the cities, but I saw it in the villages. Yeah. Yeah. So, so when they have to spit or they urinate or whatever, they do it right in the trench, right? And then there's a very slimy, horrible water going down this trench. Somehow or other, it's moving, slowly, very slowly. And there's pigs in the trench, and they're eating the stool. So, I don't know. Yeah, you've seen that also? Yeah, yeah. So it's amazing. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And one day I followed the trench, and it goes right to the Yamuna. Right to the Yamuna it goes, and it goes right into the Yamuna water, right? So, they sort of amalgamate all the trenches at one point, and it all goes into the Yamuna. So this example that Prabhupada is giving, it says that just as there is no qualitative difference between the Ganges water and the filthy drain water when they are amalgamated. Women, merchants, and laborers are not very intelligent, and thus it is very difficult for them to understand the science of God or to be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. Now let's analyze this sentence. It says women, merchants, and laborers. So in other words, it says women and men who are merchants and men who are laborers. That's what it's saying here. So there are more men that are low class than women, right? So therefore, and thus it is very difficult for them to understand the science of God or to be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. They are more materialistic and less than the women, the merchants, and laborers, and less than them are the Kiratas, Hunas, Andhras, Pulindas, Pulkasas, Abiras, Kankas, Yavanas, and Kasas, etc. But all of them can be delivered if they are properly engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. By engagement in the service of the Lord, the designated disqualifications are removed, and as pure souls, they become eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. Whoa! This is amazing. This is absolutely an amazing statement. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, verse 30. Do you remember this? We read this before. You see, it's so important to go over all this. The fallen girls under the clutches of Bhaumasura sincerely prayed to Lord Sri Krishna for their deliverance. So why does it say fallen girls? Because they were all violated by Bhaumasura. They were all princesses that were captured by Bhaumasura and taken back to his palace, and he used them for sex. Right? So they're considered fallen girls. Now, whether he used everyone for sex or not, it doesn't matter. They were stolen, and they were under his control. And usually in the Vedic system, if a girl left home and stayed away for one night, she was considered fallen already, whether she was defiled or not. So all these girls, and there were thousands of them, right? Thousands and thousands of them that Bhaumasura kidnapped. He was like invincible for most kings. They couldn't defeat him. And he would steal their girls. the fallen girls, under the clutches of Bhaumasura, sincerely prayed to Lord Sri Krishna for their deliverance, and their sincerity of purpose made them at once pure by virtue of devotion. Although they're captive, as in a sense sex slaves, and they're being defiled. Well, maybe not all of them, I don't know, I wasn't there, but they're under the control of this demon, right? But because of their sincerity of purpose, their purpose is to be saved by Krishna, made them at once pure by virtue of devotion. So no one can stop a person from acting in devotional service, because even if you can't do it physically, but you do it mentally, in other words, desiring to serve Krishna mentally, is counted as devotional service. So that made them at once pure by virtue of devotion. The Lord therefore accepted them as his wives, and thus their lives became glorified. Such auspicious glorification was still more glorified when the Lord played with them as the most devoted husband. So he marries all these ladies. At first he didn't want to do it. He said, no, you have to go back home. They said, well, we can't go back home. What are you talking about? This is Vedic times. We're considered contaminated. No one will marry us. That's how strict it was at that time. So then finally Krishna said, okay, well, I'll marry all of you. So he marries 16,000. There were 16,000 girls like this. And they had no other choice in life but to marry Krishna. Of course, they wanted to marry Krishna. It's not that it was against their will. This is what they wanted. And Krishna is the only one that can actually marry over 16,000 women and give each one an opulent palace and give each one 10 sons. No one else can do that. You can't even do 1% of that. What are you talking about? 100%. So the Lord used to live with his 16,108 wives. So 108 of the wives he won in battle. And 16,000 he got all at once by defeating Bhaumasura and liberating those girls that had been kidnapped by him. He expanded himself into 16,108 plenary portions, and each and every one of them was the Lord himself without deviation from the original personality. And this is impossible for anyone to do, right? But yet Krishna can do this. The Shruti mantra affirms that the Lord can expand himself into many. All right, which Shruti mantra is he talking about? I'm not absolutely sure, but I think it is Brahma Samhita, or at least it's a verse in Brahma Samhita. It says, Ramadi Murtisu Kalanyamena Tistan Nanavataram Akarod Bhuvane Sukintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumam Yogovindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. But when it says Shruti, that means it must be in the original 4 Vedas. But that verse that I just quoted says basically the same thing. As husband of so many wives, he pleased them all with presentations, even at a costly endeavor. In other words, he's giving them a beautiful palace made of gems. They don't have any lights. The gems reflect the light of the sun and the moon. So this palace is always lit up with a lot of beautiful light. And he gives them all kinds of presents, nice clothes, nice prasadam, nice children, and so forth. He bought the parijata plant from heaven and implanted it at the palace of Satyabhama, one of the principal queens. If, therefore, anyone desires the Lord to become one's husband, the Lord fulfills such desires in full. So this is a very interesting point. Now, 1 Canto 11th chapter, 19th verse. At the same time, many hundreds of well-known prostitutes began to proceed on various vehicles. They were all very eager to meet the Lord, and their beautiful faces were decorated with dazzling earrings, which enhanced the beauty of their foreheads. So these are prostitutes in Dwarka. Yes, there were prostitutes in Dwarka. Krishna's royal city. We may not hate even the prostitutes if they are devotees of the Lord. Even today, meaning, there are many prostitutes in great cities of India who are sincere devotees of the Lord. Did you know that? I didn't know that either. Why? Because I never went to any prostitutes in India, so I don't know. But now we know. By tricks of chance, one may be obliged to adopt a profession which is not very adorable in society, meaning becoming a prostitute. But that does not hamper one in executing devotional service to the Lord. That's not a disqualification to become a devotee of the Lord, even if one is a prostitute. Devotional service to the Lord is uncheckable in all circumstances. In other words, you can't stop anyone from becoming a devotee, even a prostitute. It is understood herewith that even in those days, about 5,000 years ago, there were prostitutes in a city like Dwarka, where Lord Krishna resided. This means that prostitutes are necessary citizens for the proper upkeep of society. Whoa! Most people would say, what? What is he saying here? Prostitutes, they're the lowest of the lowest. I mean, you have prostitutes in every city in the United States, right? And almost every city in the whole world. And he's saying that they are necessary citizens for the proper upkeep of society. Now, what does that mean? The government opens wine shops, but this does not mean that the government encourages the drinking of wine. The idea is that there is a class of men who will drink at any cost, and it has been experienced that prohibition in great cities encouraged illicit smuggling of wine. Similarly, men who are not satisfied at home require such concessions, and if there is no prostitute, then such low men will induce others into prostitution. It is better that prostitutes be available in the marketplace so that the sanctity of society can be maintained. Yeah, well, otherwise you end up, many men become like Balmasura, kidnapping girls and forcing them into prostitution. That's happening also. It's not that that doesn't happen. That does happen also. It is better that prostitutes be available in the marketplace so that the sanctity of society can be maintained. It is better to maintain a class of prostitutes than to encourage prostitutes within society. The real reformation is to enlighten all people to become devotees of the Lord, and that will check all kinds of deteriorating factors of life. So that's the solution, because there are drunkards, there are drug addicts, there are thieves, there are dacoits, there are prostitutes. So there's a whole bunch of people that are dangerous and not only self-destructive, but they destruct others. So therefore, the solution to all these problems is to make them a devotee, if it's possible. Srila Bilva Mangala Thakura, a great acharya of the Vishnu Swami Vaishnava sect, in his household life was overly attached to a prostitute who happened to be a devotee of the Lord. One night, when the Thakura came to Chintamani's house, in torrents of rain and thunder, Chintamani, that's the name of the prostitute, was astonished to see how the Thakura could come on such a dreadful night after crossing a foaming river which was full of waves. She said to Thakura Bilvamangala that his attraction for the flesh and bone of an insignificant woman like her would be properly utilized if it could be diverted to the devotional service of the Lord to achieve the attraction for the transcendental beauty of the Lord. It was a momentous hour for the Thakura, and he took a turn towards spiritual realization by the words of a prostitute. Later on, the Thakura accepted the prostitute as his spiritual master, and in several places of his literary works, he has glorified the name of Chintamani, who showed him the right path. So this prostitute named Chintamani became the Vartma Pradakshika Guru of Bilmavanga Thakur. So there's three types of gurus. There's the Vartma Pradakshika Guru, there's the Shiksha Guru, and there's the Diksha Guru. So the Vartma Pradakshika Guru is the person that introduces you to Krishna. Right? So, in the case of Bilvamangal Thakur, it was this prostitute named Chintamani. And basically she told him, look, if you have braved all this dangerous weather in crossing that river, you had obviously, how did he cross the river? There was a dead body in the river. He held on to that dead body and used it to cross the river. There was no bridge, right? And the river was very dangerous. You know, it was a flood, but somehow or other he swam across the river holding a dead body. And then when he got to her house, she had a high wall, so he climbed up on this tree, and what he thought was one branch was actually a snake that was in the tree hiding from the rain, and he had to fight off the snake. And somehow or other he got over the fence, and that was a big high concrete fence, and then he had to climb up because all the doors of the house and windows were closed. He had to climb up to her window and knocked on the window, and she comes and opens the window, and she looks at him, you know, he's exhausted because it was wet, right? And she said, if you only use the same energy that you used to come to see me tonight to become Krishna conscious, you'd be a pure devotee. So it shocked him when she said that, and he was exhausted. He was almost dead of exhaustion, and it illuminated his mind with realization that, you know, she's right. Why am I wasting all this energy to see a prostitute when I could use the same energy to see Krishna? So it says, on the other hand, those who are non-devotees have no good qualifications whatsoever, however they may be materially advanced. The difference is that the devotees of the Lord are on the path of bondage. The criterion of advancement of civilization is whether the people are educated and advanced on the path of salvation. So we don't have a very advanced society today, although it has a lot of scientific advancement, you know, cell phones, telephones, electric bulbs, all these things. But they're using all these things for sense gratification. In other words, they're going in the wrong direction. They're killing cows. They're engaged in illicit sex. They're killing babies. So it's a very, very bad time. Now we go to the first canto, first chapter, 15th verse, which says, what time is it now? Okay, it's almost time. O Sutta Goswami, those great souls who have completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord can at once sanctify those who come in touch with them, whereas the waters of the Ganges can sanctify only after prolonged use. And in the purport, Prabhupada writes, pure devotees of the Lord are more powerful than the waters of the sacred rivers of Ganges. One can derive spiritual benefit out of prolonged use of the Ganges waters, but one can be sanctified at once by the mercy of a pure devotee of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita it is said that any person, regardless of birth, as a Sudra, woman, or merchant, can take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, and by so doing can return to Godhead. To take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord means to take shelter of the pure devotees. The pure devotees, whose only business is serving, are honored by the names Prabhupada and Vishnupada, which indicate such devotees to be representatives of the lotus feet of the Lord. Anyone, therefore, who takes shelter of the lotus feet of a pure devotee by accepting the pure devotee as a spiritual master can be at once purified. Such devotees of the Lord are honored equally with the Lord because they are engaged in the most confidential service of the Lord, for they deliver out of the material world the fallen souls whom the Lord wants to return home back to Godhead. Such pure devotees are better known as vice lords according to revealed scriptures. The sincere disciple of the pure devotee considers the spiritual master equal to the Lord, but always considers himself to be a humble servant of the Lord. This is the pure devotional path. Mam hi parta vipasritya yepi syu papayonaha striya vaisas tatasudras tipi anti param gatim kim punar brahmana punya bhaktya rajasayas tata anityam asakam lokam imam prapya brajasramam. Thus the Lord says that even a merchant, a fallen woman, or a laborer, or even human beings in the lowest status of life can attain the supreme. So this is an alternate translation of that verse, Mam hi partavya pasritya. In that verse it says women, merchants, or laborers. But here, in this alternate translation, it says fallen women. It doesn't mean all women. It's fallen women and fallen merchants and fallen laborers. Or even human beings in the lowest status of life can attain the supreme. One does not need highly developed intelligence. The point is that anyone who accepts the principle of Bhakti Yoga and accepts the Supreme Lord as the summum bonum of life. So summum bonum is a Latin phrase, which means the highest, the greatest, the most important, the supreme, right? So it says, the point is that anyone who accepts the principle of Bhakti Yoga and accepts the Supreme Lord as the summum bonum of life, the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead, as the highest target, the ultimate goal, can approach the Lord in the spiritual sky. If one adopts the principles enunciated in Bhagavad Gita, he can make his life perfect and make a permanent solution to all the problems of life. This is the sum and substance of the entire Bhagavad Gita. In other words, if one adopts principles enunciated in Bhagavad Gita, he can make his life perfect and make a permanent solution to all problems of life that are all problems of life. So this is the sum and substance of the entire Bhagavad Gita. So this same sentence is repeated in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 14th chapter. First canto, 14th chapter. Let's see. It's because the same thing is said twice. Third and fourth verse. Somewhere in the third and fourth verse. Okay. So, here we see amazing statements by Prabhupada. You cannot imagine that Prabhupada made such statements. But they're true. It shows the universality of Krishna consciousness. Anyone, even the worst person, can become a devotee. There's no obstacle if they're willing to accept Bhagavad Gita and follow it properly. That's how powerful the Bhagavad Gita knowledge is. Okay, we'll stop right there. Are there any questions? Yes. So don't go to a prostitute. You know, that's not the purport of today's class, right? Yeah.
So, Maharaj, about modes of material nature, we always call it as modes of material nature, like 3 modes of material nature. So, and we also learned that this material world is the exact replica or kind of perverted reflection of this spiritual world.
Yes.
So, does that mean that these modes also exist in spiritual world?
Yeah. No.
So when you say perverted reflection,
No, but there's something else though in the spiritual world. There is the love for Krishna. So that is a controlling, let's say, supernatural force. This attraction to Krishna. So that far is far more powerful than the modes of material nature. You see, there's always going to be an influence, whether it's in the spiritual world or in the material world. In the material world, in order to help people leave Krishna consciousness, there are the modes of material nature. And in the spiritual world, to help people come closer to Krishna, you have Yoga Maya, which puts them in illusion. So the modes of material nature put people into illusion in the material world. And that's called Mahamaya. And in the spiritual world, there's Yoga Maya that puts people into illusion so they come closer to Krishna. So there are influences like that in the spiritual world also, in the form of Yoga Maya. But it's influence to bring you closer to Krishna, whereas here, there's influence to take you away from Krishna so that you can engage in sense gratification. That's why we all came here. We got attracted to sense gratification. But in order to have sense gratification, you have to be in a state of illusion. You have to think that for me, there's no Krishna, there's no spiritual world, there's only the material world. Well, that's a state of illusion, deep illusion. So there has to be something that causes that, and those are the modes of material nature. So, man proposes, God disposes. So, people want to have sense gratification, okay, but you need certain things, certain conditions to engage in sense gratification. You have to be in complete ignorance of God. So, therefore, they're the modes of material nature that put people completely ignorant of God. Right? But that's not the constitutional position of a living entity. So therefore, there are other influences, such as devotees who preach Bhagavad Gita. There's Bhagavad Gita itself that's telling people, hey, wait a minute, that's not the purpose of life. You've been fooled, you've been cheated. Right? Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, let's say, the 7th chapter is a very important chapter. So in the 7th chapter is a very interesting verse. It says, Icha dvesa samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarvabhutani samohan sargayanti parantapa. O Skyan of Bharata, O Arjuna, O conqueror of the foe, O conqueror of enemies, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. That means everyone is born in this material world is in delusion. See, and it happens right away. When a baby is born, all the parents and the relatives come and they kiss the baby and they, rocking the baby like this, and they say, your name is, so-and-so Bajaj, right? You're a Bajaj, right? So the great baby grows up thinking, I'm Bajaj. I'm a member of the Bajaj family. And then the pundit says, and what is your gotra? And they said, oh, it's Bharadwaj. Right? So I'm Bajaj, but in Bharadwaj, So, these are all, in a sense, false, ideas that are, drilled into the baby's mind, By the time he's 5 years old, the teacher said, what is your name? He said, well, my name is Raj Bajaj, right? And I'm coming from India, and I am in the Bharadwaj Gotra. So all this, it's like identifications, and actually they're not actually factual. Why? Well, they exist, but they're not eternal. Therefore, they're not considered factual. Only things that are eternal are considered factual. Like for example, I'm the eternal servant of Krishna. That's factual, right? Because that's the constitutional position of the soul. But I'm Bajaj, Bharadwaj. It's not factual because it's not eternal. Now, it is temporarily existing, but it's not eternal, so therefore it's not actually factual. So it's some kind of an illusion. But it starts right from birth, I mean, even before birth, there are carryovers from the previous life. But when you get born in a family, then they drill it into you, that you are this, although that's not eternal. So everyone is born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. Just like we saw this Saturday. What's her name? Bhakti Priya. She announces, and now the group from I forget the name. Anyway, she gives the name of this group, and then the group people protested. No, we're not part of that anymore. Now we're something else now, right? So,
Elements.
huh?
Elements.
Elements. Yeah. Now we're elements. We're not. What was the other one?
The other one is bits of red mind.
What?
Bits of red mind.
Bits?
Beats.
Oh, beats of
Beats
Redmond.
of Redmond.
Beats of Redmond, yeah. So they broke away from beats of Redmond. They became elements, see? So that's an example right there. Is elements eternal? Is beats of Redmond eternal? No. So therefore, they're not considered real because they're not sat, they're asat, they're temporary, see? So people are identifying with something temporary, and they're willing to die for it. They're willing to fight and kill for it. See? So now you see the problem with the material world. People start believing things that are not actually true. Now, they exist temporarily, but because they're not sat, they're not considered true. They're illusory because it's only for a short period of time. Okay, Haribol. Interesting, right? We can see it every day, beats of Redmond and elements. And they're ready to kill each other. It's possible they'll kill each other. They hate each other, Haribol.
Maharaj, one question. Maharaj, you have mentioned about 4 kinds of people. They never come to Krishna. So,
Well, they can if they want to, but.
So I just want to make sure they are all 4. I have noted down. So one is whose belly is full. You mentioned.
Yeah, it's like the ass.
Yes.
Like gada, right? Gada is the word.
Yes.
In Hindi, yeah. These gadas. They're just interested in eating. And you see them, they're always going out to the restaurants, Hyderabad, what is it called? Hyderabadi biryani, yeah. The Hindus eating Hyderabadi biryani, with meat and all that slop, And then the second one is
you mentioned have their knowledge, have knowledge, but
Naradama. They have knowledge, but they know everything, but they don't follow anything. And then there's the Maya Pratagyana. They're like the Mayavadis, not only they have knowledge, they're practicing to spiritual life in a sense, right? They're doing austerities and things like that. But it's to become one with God. That's the illusion. One, become God. Becoming one with God is possible, but one in terms of having the same desire, right? Desiring to always serve Krishna, then you're one with God, right? But your individuality is still there. But the Mayavadis make up this false theory that you can annihilate your individuality and you become God. That's what they understand by oneness with God. And we understand oneness with God means always agreeing to follow Krishna's order or Krishna's desire. So oneness is there, but there's a different understanding of it between the Vaishnavas and the Mayavadis. So the Mayavadis are these Maya Pratagyana. They know everything. But that they're still an illusion. They think that Krishna is not the Supreme Personality of God. He's just an ordinary human being like us, maybe a little bit more developed than we are, but still, when he comes, his body is is made of matter. It's not a spiritual body. And they have a whole bunch of misconceptions about Krishna. You see, so they have plenty of knowledge, and they're engaged in some type of spiritual activity, but they're actually deeply in illusion, and therefore, even if they attain the Brahman effulgence, they will fall down. Okay.
And the last thing is demons.
Asuras. They hate Krishna. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Purport, there is one more. Like, say that all who worships Vishnu are demigods. So all Vaishnavas are considered as demigods, Maharaj, or it's just a general statement Prabhupada made in the purport
if you
today.
worship Lord Vishnu, you're worshiping Krishna. So, but if you worship Vishnu, but you think that Krishna is subordinate to Vishnu, again, it's another illusion. See? So, even on that high level, where they're worshiping Krishna because Vishnu is his expansion. But then if they say that Vishnu is the source of Krishna, that's the wrong statement. And they also reject Radharani. So, yeah, even on a high level, they can be illusory concepts. But they're very close to perfection. That's, a little, just like the four Kumaras, they were not critical of Krishna in any way. They just didn't know. So when they actually met the Lord and smelled the scent of the tulsi leaves on his lotus feet, immediately they became pure devotees. So they never denied the existence of Krishna or made up theories that Krishna is subordinate to Vishnu or anything like that. They had a bona fide guru, and because of that, they went step by step to the highest realization that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you see, it's possible to go step by step, but it's very difficult. Very, very difficult. It's much easier just to become Krishna conscious. But no one is prohibited to go to Krishna. Anyone can become a devotee. And this is what Prabhupada understood. That's why he came to America and started the movement in the lower part of Manhattan, which is like, horrible place, especially in the 1960s. But yet, he made devotees there and started the movement. And then he went to Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, which is the same thing as the lower Manhattan in New York. And he started preaching there and made devotees. So he was taking the lowest of the lowest and making them the highest of the highest. Because he was not prejudiced. He knew that everyone has a relationship with Krishna. They've simply forgotten it. So what did he do? He tried to help them remember that Krishna is Supreme Personality Godhead. You never stop talking about Krishna. See? So some people talk about God, right? But actually, Prabhupada came to talk about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? And he succeeded. Haribol. All glories to Prabhupada.
श्री गुरु चरण पद्मा केवल भक्ति सद्मा
Shri Guru Charana Padma
केवल
Bhakti Sadma
बंद मोई सावधान माते
Mando Mui Savadana Mate
जहर प्रसादे भाई ए भव तोरिया जाय आदे भाई ए भव तोरिया कृष्ण प्राप्ति हो जहाँ होते
Krishna Prapti Hoya
गुरुमुख पद्मा वाक्य चिते कोरिया क्या वाक्य चिते कोरिया अरे ना कोरी हो माने आशा श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति रति ऐसे उत्तम गति जय प्रसाद पूरे सर्व आशा चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेमा भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जायते वेदे गाय जहर चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनर बंधु लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवाना आहा प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया ए बेजाश गुशिक त्रिभुवन शिला प्रभुपाद पतित पवन जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदांत नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे निर्विशेषा जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा निताय गौरा हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि बोल
His Divine Grace, Isi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra ki jai, Namacharya Srila Haridasa Thakur ki jai, Prem Sukho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Shri Mayapura Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Tulasi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Ganga Maya ki jai, Jamuna Maya ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktavinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to Samadhi, all glories to Samadhi, all glories to Samadhi, all glories to Shiguru, Shiguranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Bhavani ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vasudeva Bhakti Sumati Bhakti Sumati Namaste The
lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material sufferings and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills our desires. He offers my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Loknath Goswami, Master, be merciful unto me. Give me the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. We take the shade.